I accidentally slept with my cousin multiple times. It has been more than a year since my ex-husband and I decided to separate. Despite our separation, my ex-husband and I continue to live in the same house and co-parent our 3 small children. According to our separation agreement, the first person to enter a new relationship will be responsible for moving out or buying out the other party. Our marriage ultimately ended because of my ex-husband's drinking problem and lack of intimacy. Despite his reluctance to accept the end of the marriage, we went through a tumultuous period with extensive mediation. Eventually, we managed to redefine our relationship as best friends and roommates, which surprisingly worked well for us. To our surprise, we have developed a stronger bond as friends than we ever did as husband and wife. For the past 6 months, I have been in a casual relationship with a guy who happens to be from the same town where I grew up. Interestingly, despite living just 10 minutes apart, we discovered that we had no mutual friends and had never heard of each other prior to meeting online. While I vaguely recall meeting 2 of his sisters at various events or non-family gatherings in the past, I had never personally known this man before our relationship began. In addition, he was going through a separation and had temporarily moved back in with his parents while he worked on his finances to build a new house. His ex-wife was residing in the family home with their children. During those 6 months, we experienced a deep and fulfilling connection on multiple levels, physically, emotionally, and even spiritually. Our compatibility was evident, and we fell deeply in love with each other. We cherished our time together, engaging in passionate and intimate moments. We would often meet at least once a week for enjoyable experiences in the bedroom, and occasionally, we would also meet for lunch if our schedules allowed. Our communication was constant, as we exchanged text messages and engaged in FaceTime conversations every day. The affection and adoration between us were undeniable. Our relationship had progressed to the point where we started making plans for our future. We discussed renting a house together and even contemplated building a new home on his land, solidifying our commitment to each other and our shared dreams. Despite our failed marriages being known to both our friends and families, we chose to keep our relationship discreet for the time being. We weren't ready to explicitly announce that we had moved on, but behind the scenes, we were taking steps towards making our relationship official and public. The desire to share our love openly was growing, and we were making strategic moves to reach that point in our journey together. Last week, while I was visiting my parents, a casual conversation with my mom took an unexpected turn. She mentioned the name of a woman, let's call her Britney Spears for the sake of this story, in some idle gossip. Just as I was about to mention that I was seeing Britney's brother, my mom added an astonishing piece of information. She'd be a cousin of mine on her mother's side. In that moment, a wave of unease washed over me. I tried to remain composed and asked for more details. My mom revealed that Britney's mother had some distance from the wider family, and it was Britney's father who primarily raised the kids. She also mentioned that my grandmother and the Spears kids' grandmother were sisters, making us distant relatives. After leaving my parents' place, I called Mr. Spears to discuss the shocking revelation. Initially, he thought I was playing a prank on him, but when he heard the sadness in my voice, he realized I was serious. I made the difficult decision to end the relationship on the spot. He was upset and pleaded with me to reconsider, but he ultimately respected my choice. The next morning, when he reached out to check in, I reaffirmed my decision and requested that he refrain from contacting me in the future and keep our relationship confidential. Have you ever ruined somebody's life? I come from a small town in a rural area where conservative attitudes prevail. Growing up, I always knew I was gay, but unfortunately, the community around me is largely homophobic. In order to protect myself and maintain a sense of safety, I made the decision to remain in the closet until I have the opportunity to leave my hometown and find a more accepting environment. It can be a difficult and isolating experience, but I hold on to the hope of finding a place where I can embrace my true self without fear of judgment or discrimination. 7 years ago, a senator from Vermont made a significant announcement. He was running for president of the United States. As an outspoken and opinionated high school senior, I couldn't resist diving headfirst into online activism. While not everyone appreciated my political views, most people saw me as just a passionate 17-year-old who spent too much time online. The reactions were mostly limited to a few comments my parents received at church, and overall, it didn't create a significant stir. Even at school, I found myself lacking self-awareness as I couldn't help but constantly discuss the Democratic primaries. While I wasn't antisocial, the majority of my friends were equally geeky and just as oblivious to our own tendencies. One aspect I didn't consider was the consequences of harassing my entire rural town to follow my Twitter account, only to later discover that I had liked explicit gay content on that account. These likes were from several months prior, so they required some scrolling to find. However, a classmate named Alex went to the trouble of finding those likes and sent screenshots to practically everyone at school, including my parents. Although this was a difficult situation to navigate, the aftermath was somewhat less severe than I anticipated. It took my parents about a week to adjust, but they eventually became more accepting. Other adults in town avoided me, but that wasn't much of a change as they had always kept their distance. People at school initially picked on me, but their teasing quickly diminished. Still, I couldn't let what Alex did slide. It wasn't a completely harmless situation, especially since my parents were still homophobic and openly expressed it. Moreover, nobody wants their personal history exposed to their parents in such a manner. Alex was a top-of-the-class straight-A student with an Ivy League aspirations, and definitely Ivy League qualifications. His future was also fully dependent on his parents' money. I needed to hit these two aspects of Alex's life and turn them into smoke. Alex's parents embodied the classic movie archetype of small-town wealthy individuals. They belonged to the privileged class, with deep-rooted family wealth, his father working as a respected lawyer. Their reputation was impeccable, actively engaged in the community and church, holding conservative values, and even dabbling in local and state politics. Alex, being a privileged rich kid, was no stranger to the trappings that came with his upbringing. While there was nothing inherently negative about his wealth, it did come with a set of challenges and occasional instances of misguided rebellion that were characteristic of many spoiled rich kids. Little did Alex know that his own past would become the catalyst for the destruction of his promising future. Alex, despite his polished and accomplished persona as a valedictorian, had a hidden side to him. At the age of 15, he dabbled in the illicit world of illegal substance dealing, a stark contrast to his image of excellence. It was through a mutual friend that I discovered his involvement. As we procured grass from him once, armed with screenshots of our conversations, I confronted his parents with the evidence. Initially, they dismissed it as a revenge-driven fabrication on my part. To dispel their doubts, I arranged for my friend to show them the conversations firsthand the following Sunday after the sermon, which he willingly did. Adding to the revelations, it came to light that a year prior to exposing my secret, Alex had impregnated a girl who opted for a termination, which he financially supported in exchange for her silence about the identity of the father. Unfortunately, her parents had already discovered her pregnancy, and she willingly took the blame upon herself. I had some familiarity with this girl, as we shared political interests and engaged in occasional discussions. Fueled by her anger towards Alex for exposing me, and with a little nudge from me, she decided to make a bold move by posting a call-out on the town's Facebook group, sharing screenshots of their conversations. It turned out that Alex had been operating an alt-right trolling account, using it to harass black individuals with derogatory language, racist jokes, and even sharing IQ graphs. Several people, particularly a black student at our school, had reported these incidents. However, it was challenging to prove that Alex was the one behind the account, until I discovered that he occasionally logged into it using the school's computers. I provided this crucial information to the principal, and with the assistance of the IT team, they caught him in the act, red-handed. As a result, Alex faced a 1-week suspension and had to publicly apologize in front of the entire school for his actions. Alex's transformation from a model son to a disgrace was swift and devastating. Upon learning about his actions, his parents made the difficult decision to disown him completely, cutting off all financial support after his graduation. Despite still managing to secure a place at an Ivy League school, the absence of his parents' backing forced him to navigate the challenges of juggling academics and a part-time job. The immense pressure proved too much, and Alex ultimately made the difficult choice to drop out after just 1 year of college. Alex took his life shortly after. I stalked my husband for 2.5 years before we truly met. I married my husband about 1.5 years ago. The first time I saw my husband I was a freshman in high school, he was a freshman in college. He was walking his dog at the park, when he stopped to talk to my brother because they happened to go to high school together. That was the moment I became hooked. That same day I found his Instagram, his family's social media, and also where he lived since my brother offered to walk him home while I tagged along. When I got home that day I knew I wanted him. But of course I was only 14 while he was 18, so I came up with a plan. I found out his younger brother was only 1 year younger than me and would be attending my current high school. I figured that I had to befriend his younger brother by any means possible next year when he moves up as a freshman while I become a sophomore, and I did. It took around halfway of my junior year where we became best friends and he invited me over regularly to his house to hang out. This is where I was able to befriend my current husband's mom, and God did she love to talk about him. From her, I found out what college he goes to, his past girlfriends, what his elementary and middle school was, his favorite/least favorite foods, his pet peeves, what he likes, etc. etc. Eventually when my visits started getting more and more frequent, I formally met current husband again. Current husband, I'll call him E, would come over every other week and stay for either Friday to Sunday, or Saturday to Sunday. On those days specifically I would wear my cutest outfits to impress him, and also joke around with him a lot. Eventually I befriended him as well. A little background on E. He is the school record holder for a certain sport at my school, which I just so happened to do. And around halfway through my senior year he came back during the season to help coach the current high school athletes, which included me, in order to get some more volunteer work hours in, and I got to spend a lot more time with him. I loved every second of it. We were friends before, but then we became much closer since I got to spend lots of extra time with him after school, where sometimes he would even drive me home since we lived relatively close. Fast forward to when I had to move away to NYC for college. He moved with me since he coincidentally got a job near my college. Being each other's only friends in a new state, we became incredibly close. We started dating when I was almost a sophomore year of college. He proposed to me after I graduated, and we just got married almost a year ago. He knows absolutely nothing about how I truly know him, and believes it is fate that brought us together through his younger brother. Lately I've been debating on whether or not I should tell him, or at least his younger brother, the truth, since the only reason I befriended him was to get closer to E. I feel guilty every time he tells others our love story, because the truth is, I've known him for 10 years, while he's only known me for about 7.